Hello everyone, I'm CoolGuy, welcome back. A very anticipated 1022 this week at Bungie is out. It's talking about the Sandbox, and I'm actually going to go through this live. That way I can get the video out quick and we can talk about some of the changes. And they're going to go into changes to specific weapons and weapon families. A lot of the time, players default to rate of fire when talking about weapons. We know that an aggressive hand cannon is going to have a 110 RPM, things like that. They first start with hand cannons. We're making changes to give hand cannon subfamilies more diversity and more reasons to use each of them. With the aggressive frame, they have increased the rate of fire from 110 to 120. So out of the gate, that 1.10 TTK is going to be a flat 1 second time to kill, similar to the 180s. Broke out aggressive hand cannons, allowing custom tuning of stats, meaning damage fall off for 100 range in this subfamily now starts at 32 meters, meaning it's not bound within the confines of the quote normal hand cannon range. So they're getting a little bit more. Next, they talk about adaptive and precision hand cannons. The range stat now has more impact on minimal damage fall off range for both archetypes. Damage fall off for 100 range now starts at 25 meters, was 20 meters. Precision hand cannons, 180s, their magazine was scaled up by 37%. Note this also affects exotics with the rate of fire, which is very good. At max within a magazine, 8-9 rounds, you can only have 2 kills within the mag, so it needs 13-14 rounds. Next, the lightweights. They have folded them into the adaptive frame. All the lightweight hand cannons, 150 RPM, are going to be adaptives, 140. This includes Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten, and one exotic hand cannon is going to retain 150, that's going to be Sunshot. At this time, the lightweights 150 hand cannons represent the majority of hand cannon usage in the Crucible. While they've experimented with many different ways to even out the lightweights and the adaptives, the lightweight hand cannons consistently retained a faster TTK. We've opted to just equalize the rate of fire. Now, I'm okay with this. They selected 140s to balance the Crucible sandbox. It gives other weapon archetypes more time to breathe between shots, and it avoids an overabundance of hand cannons with a faster TTK than others, and it pairs nicely with some upcoming changes to 600 autos, and they'll talk about that in a moment. We've always talked about 150s just being the clear-cut winner because they're all sharing the same range. And when push comes to shove, one of them is going to kill a little bit quicker because of that rate of fire, so they made them pretty much all the same. We have an extreme that's an aggressive 120 now, we have a precision that's a 180, and then there's just this one, so there's 3 main ones with the exception of Sunshot. And when they say damage fall off for 100 range now starts at 25 meters, was 20, generally when they say it and it sounds low, they usually do that by hip fire, but regardless, it sounds like it's just going to be a 5 meter increase. So the base 28 would be 33, higher range 30, 31 would be 35, 36, so it sounds like they're getting more range, unless I'm reading it a little bit off. Let's talk about it down below. Regardless, this is a huge change to our hand cannons, and I think things like Ace of Spades is going to come back with a vengeance. There's also talks of Hawkmoon. I think Lumina could be a little bit different too. It's really going to shake up our hand cannon usage. Another big one, sniper rifles. They've adjusted how the aim assist is affected by sniper rifle zoom level, and this is something that they were talking about doing. Lower zoom scopes have less aim assist, higher zoom scopes have more. Scopes with around 50 zoom are going to be unchanged. So, the lowest zoom scopes have a large reduction in aim assist cone angle, and the highest zoom scopes have a small increase. The 50 zooms are going to be unchanged. That's something like Long Walk, Tatara Gaze, Trophy Hunter, those have 50 zoom. Long Shadow, there's a lot of them. The ones that are a little bit higher, we haven't really seen. That's Show of Force, Valletta D, the Maestro, those are 53 zoom. If it's just blanketed across because of something like Borealis or Izanagi's Burden is unaffected by that, the exotic sniper rifles could come out and get a little bit more play. I'm okay with this. It requires a little bit more precision if you're sniping with a low zoom stat. This is a huge thing. It's going to change sniping, at least it should. And again, let's talk about it down below. With auto rifles, in Season of the Worthy, they buffed the 600s. We're going to pull that back a little bit to make them a little bit more aligned with the other auto rifle archetypes. For the adaptives, the damage per bullet reduced from 15.75 to 14.25. Prior to Season of the Worthy, they were at 13.75. That should do a TTK shift if it's a bullet more. That means that the TTK is going to be a 0.8. If it's 2 bullets more than what it is now, it's going to be a 0.9. So it should bring it right back in line with other weapons in the game. And finally, we have something for scout rifles. Scouts have a reasonable TTK and can't be adjusted too much without them being completely dominant, so they're making them a little bit easier to use. They've increased how much each point of the aim assist stat is going to widen the aim assist cone, and at maximum, the aim assist cone is now 15% wider, so that's pretty big. The aim assist for Mida is already 100. Something like Jade Rabbit has an 80 aim assist. the second highest in the game out of all scouts, so it should feel really, really good. I'm okay with that. We're gonna have to get it in our hands and we're gonna see how it goes. Next to rocket launchers. They say they have low reserves, so we're adjusting that. We expect to take another look at rocket launchers in a future season. They've increased the reserves by 1 or 2 rockets depending on the inventory stat. So more rockets is always gonna be a good thing, but I'd like to see damage looked at a little bit more. I would personally like what the Godslayer Warheads mod gives them damage-wise just to be the normal for them. With some general sandbox changes, they say some of these changes apply to weapons that are a little too far ahead of other options, while others apply small buffs to increase the weapon's effectiveness. So for perks, we have Outlaw. The reload speed increases felt insufficient with certain subfamilies and combination of roles, like the aggressive hand cannon. So they increase the reload stat bonus from plus 50 to plus 70, so that's good. Merciless, they increase inventory stat from 36 to 55. This increases the reserve ammo. Next, we have Mountaintop. Here we go. We've had a ton of feedback that Mountaintop feels a little over the top in Crucible. This pinnacle weapon has had its time to shine, which I agree with, so they're toning it down. Specific pain points: one-shot body with infinite range, quick and easy cleanup for wounded guardians even around corners, deals high splash damage, rewarding players for inaccuracy, perfect in-air accuracy, allows airborne guardians to rain down death, and there's not much grounded guardians can do to respond. So yeah, when you lay it out like that, it's pretty strong. So here are the changes to address these points. They reduce the splash damage by 33%, increased impact damage such that total damage is 5% lower than before, reduced projectile velocity multiplier of the micro missile perk from 1.4 to 1.2, now 20% faster than the other breach grenade launchers instead of 40%, reduced in-air accuracy, now it has a significant projectile error while in the air, around 7 degrees without the Icarus Grip mod attached, and substantially less with it. So hopefully that's gonna bring it in line. I think the splash damage is pretty huge for it. The Falling Guillotine, one of the best weapons in the game, reduced heavy attack damage by 24% to bring it in line with other swords. Note, the Falling Guillotine will continue to be slightly above average, just not to the extent that it is now. But even if it is gonna be the best damage dealing sword with your perk mods, it's still gonna be a solid option. They're just gonna bring it in line a little bit more. Next, we have the Mida and the Mida Mini. The Mida Mini tool, they moved the Mida Synergy trait to the intrinsic, similar to how Drang works, and they added the following perks: Hipfire and Kill Clip. That's great. Note, there's an issue with the masterwork of this weapon that prevents it from being upgraded. It's gonna be fixed in a later date. Next is Sturm and Drang, which by the way, I'm really excited to see them talk about these paired weapons for Drang. They moved the Together Forever trait to the intrinsic, similar to how the Baroque, the new Drang version works. They added the following perks: Accurized Rounds and Moving Target. This one also has that same issue where it can't be upgraded. That's going to be fixed. We have the Ruinous Effigy, Transmutation Spheres, reduce the damage of the arrow melee attack by 25%. Oh no. And they significantly reduce the damage of the drain effect on enemy combatants. That's kind of a shame. It's a very strong exotic, but with where it's at right there, I'm unsure if it's going to get more play, because as it stands right now, there's still some really good options, and you throw this on as a change of pace and it does well. And the festival right now, I've pretty much just made it in the forest, just running around. We'll have to see how it performs. We have the Arbalist. No longer strikes shields multiple times, but its efficacy against shielded targets has been increased, so that's a good thing. Jade Rabbit. The armor-piercing rounds have been swapped to high-caliber rounds. This fixes an issue that could prevent the exotic perk from triggering. High cals with the most aim assist on that archetype, and they're getting the aim assist buff. I like it. It says next, let's look at some new hotness coming to the lighthouse near you. So now we're getting ready to talk about trials. Adept. Beginning in Beyond Light, all existing Trials weapons will have Adept versions. Our intent is that all the new Trials weapons do have Adept versions in the future, with their infusion caps matching the season that they were introduced in. For the first round of Adepts, their infusion caps will be set to that of Season of the Worthy. Additionally, we will be introducing Adept version mods into the Sandbox into Beyond Light, which can only be applied to Adept weaponry. So for the Adept weapons, here's how they're going to differ from the base weapons. Masterworking an Adept weapon grants additional stats. Plus 10 for the primary stat as usual, the specific masterwork for that weapon, but it also gives plus 3 for all the alternate stats. So an all-around buff to the weapon. If you get a summoner with a range masterwork that gets added on top, all the other stats, the stability, the handling, all get plus 3. They say these Adept weapons can use either a standard weapon mod or a new Adept weapon mod earned by going flawless. A unique Adept shader has been made for these weapons, and they look pretty sweet. Note that these shaders are not awarded as a consumable when dismantling the Adept weapon. As such, they cannot be applied to other pieces of gear. In the Adept weapon mods, they come in two varieties. First, weapon stat boosts, which also grant plus 10 to a particular stat in a similar way to a masterwork stat does. Example, Adept range for plus 10 range. Okay, these weapons are looking really, really good. Versions of some existing mods granting an improved bonus, but with a downside. Base version of the mod explained below. So for the Adept mag, you get plus 40 mag, but negative 20 handling. The backup mag is plus 30 magazine. So there's gonna be some push and pull, some downsides and some upsides. With the current Trials weapons that we have, no doubt a lot of them are tough to get, especially something like an Eye of Soul with, let's say, Snapshot Vorpal. But you could really turn these things into a beast once you get them. And they say to get these Adept weapons and mods, you must complete a Flawless Trials passage and open the Flawless chest at the lighthouse. Each week, a different Adept mod can drop from the chest. So it's gonna be worth it on top of going for the loot. Adept weapon mods will be on a weekly rotation, so a given mod may not make its appearance until later on in the season. The mod is unlocked for use on owned Adept weapons when acquired. The Adept weapons will be available from the Flawless chest on a bi-weekly basis, alternating with armor drops. The first Adept weapon is going to be a Pinnacle drop, so players can continue to earn alternate rolls on a specific Adept weapon when completing a Flawless passage. In 3 weeks, they're going to be talking about abilities. Stasis is going to make the debut, of course, bringing a new flavor into the sandbox. They say they're going to be watching closely as we embark on our first strikes, matches of Gambit and the Crucible, and see how it's all stacking up against each other. A lot of big takeaways. The hand cannons, the sniper rifles, the scouts, all big changes. I didn't really see them combining 140s and 150s. I really didn't. I thought that the lightweights were always going to have that frame to be a little bit faster. I thought that the 140s were going to get a little bit of either a damage buff or a little bit of a range buff to set them apart. But with this, it's setting the TTK universally for a hand cannon. So actually the new 120s I think are going to be viable because they're going to have more range, they're going to have a little bit better drop off. You're still going to be able to 3-tap, and it's going to do it in a 1 second flat instead of a 1.1. Not to mention, if you get something like Kill Clip on one of these bad boys, that damage is extended out further, and the decay or the fall off is going to be fine to potentially 2-tap. All of this is considering we don't know what weapons are coming. There's still Hawkmoon. There's going to be Beyond Light weapons that are going to be inserted into the sandbox, but that's a whole lot of hand cannons just to combine into one. Very interested to see how Sniper Rifle Zoom is going to affect how they play. Notice they didn't talk about flinch, they just talked about landing shots, and this, when you think about it, could be their answer. Shooting through flinch because the aim assist is so high. If they take away that aim assist, the bullet isn't going to find face like it used to. I'm excited to see what they did to Mountaintop. Some of you might not like it. Really love what they're doing with Mida, Mini, and Sturm and Drang. Something to note here. The 140s compared to 150s. The 140s have higher inherent range and stability compared to these 150s. So if you take a Spare Rations, if you take a Rose, if you take a Dire Promise, these are going to be converted to 140s. At that point, you can look into Austringer, you can look into Ace of Spades, and out of the gate, Austringer has 63 stability and 51 range. There are no 150s that come close to that as far as base range and stability. So it's all going to transition, I think. There's a lot to dive into, there's a lot to digest. But let's talk about first impressions down below. Those were mine. I just read them live and going through the video. Are you okay with these? Did you see these coming? Let's talk about it. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.